My name is Walter Boyd. I was born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I currently just turned 56. Um, I'm disabled. I'm in a housing program. I got a son that's 30 years old. Recently divorced a couple years ago. Um, from a family of 8 siblings. Um, One of these persons that's in life that's real appreciated where I'm at right now. Had my ups and downs, but really don't have no grudges against anybody. I think anything that happened to me in life, I really caused it. And I think most of the positive stuff that happened in life is because the people that came in my life that gave me structure and direction. And so I'm grateful for that. I'm a minister. I heard fast to my faith. It's really what I endure in life. I enjoy reading the Bible. I enjoy telling people about the Word of God. But most of all, I'm real passionate about the homeless, and I'm really appreciative of how Denver, Colorado, is on addressing this issue. The mayor, the Coalition for the Homeless. I would like to thank the Community Outreach Center on the 5 Points associated with Agape Church, Denver Health with the Project Hope, helping out with the mental health on homeless, and also for Adam coming out today doing that documentary. It's these type of things or situations that's going to draw the attention that we need to solve this homeless situation. And I'm so grateful that I have a voice. I used to always think that nobody cared or my voice didn't count, and now I'm starting to see it change. And it's unbelievable. And like I said, I want to thank Adam again, to appreciate to hear my voice and just give a little, perspective from my point of view about the homeless problem in Denver.
This question just came to me when you were talking. Are you a lucky man?
No, I'm a blessed man. I don't believe in luck. I hold faith to, I hold, to my faith. And I really believe that the way I structure my life is in the way I believe, and that makes a real difference. I don't think luck is something that just can happen out of nowhere. If you came up to me and gave me $10, I don't think I'm lucky. I just think that it was a good man that gave me $10, and I believe there's a lot of good men and women in this world.
Tell me a little bit about just how you grew up.
I grew up in a large family. It was a struggle. My mother worked at a Ford Motor Company. My father was a Vietnam vet. He came back from the war addicted to heroin and kind of messed up in the war. So my father was an alcoholic abuser, and therefore my mother had to, you know, carry on the family. She had to take care of us. With that being the problem is my mother worked 6 days, 12 hours. So the kids, we structurally had to take care of the home. My father was out the picture. But whenever my father was in the picture, it was a lot of hostility and anger, and it brewed over to me. So I was taken out the home for child abuse at 9, and I was put into a boys' home. Repeat cycles of one boys' home after another boys' home. And what really made it horrific for me is because I didn't go to a boys' home because I committed a crime or I didn't know how to, or I was delinquent. I went there because my mother and the courts felt like I needed to be protected. So I found myself in a world of boys that was violent, unstructured, and now as a 9 year old, I had to find a way to survive. And I think my life took a different toll. And it was a toll that no 9 year old should have ever had to take.
How long were you in the boys' home, and what do you remember from then?
I was in a boys' home, I say possibly 5, 6 years. And what I remember is the day when they came over and when they was going to take me, my mother came crying and she said, "I'm coming to get you." She said, "Don't worry." I said, "Okay, Mom." So after 5 years, my mother visited me at one of the boys' home. She said, I can't bring you back home. I don't trust him. I don't know what he gonna do. And I started crying. She said, look at me. I'm gonna always keep my promise. I talked to my oldest brother. Him and his wife gonna take you. And so I went to live with my uncle and my aunt, and they became my foster parents. So my mother kept her promise for me. I just couldn't come home, but she came back and got me though.
I don't want to talk more about. Um, I don't want to talk more about prison than you want to talk about. But tell me whatever you want about when you went to prison and how old were you?
I was 32 at the time they got incarcerated for prisons. At the time, my life was real unstructured. I was on the streets. Even though I had some moral standards and values that I wouldn't cross, but I was always an impressible person because of how my life was. I never had the things that other people had. And so I tend to look at the wrong people far as how I thought, I wanted my life to be drug dealers, gang members. Even though I never joined the gang, I never got into the piercing or the tattoos, but I always got into the flash. I always liked the money, the pretty girls, the cars, the jewelry. So I got caught up in the drug dealing, and then with the drug dealing, the drug use, and then just an ongoing cycle, bad relationships, hanging out with the wrong people. And so I got on the radar on the 5 points, and the police started watching me and started harassing me. And one day I just got caught with the right amount of stuff, and I was sentenced to prison.
How long were you? How long were you going?
I had 10 years prison sentence, and I did 8 years incarceration.
What's it like getting out of prison?
It's like an empty feeling. It's like coming into a world that you didn't know exists. I went to prison in 2001, August 21, and when I went to prison, I had a beeper, and I thought it was the highest form of communication back then. When I got out, people had camera phones, people was texting. The world just looked different. I had some prison clothes they gave me, and I had a big plastic bag with all my belongings, paperwork, you know, most of the stuff I accumulated over the years, and no money in my pocket. Felt lost, felt alone, felt scared.
I'm gonna ask you that question again, just as I go. If you could kind of put the question in your answer, you know what I mean, like getting out of prison, stuff like that, just to set it up for me a little. So what's it like? What's it like getting out of prison?
It's scary. It's
One more time. Just so I can edit it together. If you
okay.
could say like, if you put that question in your answer, like, oh well, when I got out of prison
Oh,
or something
okay.
like that, yeah.
So when I got out of prison, it's like uncertainty. I didn't have a place to go. I didn't know what I was gonna do. I was gone for a while, so I didn't basically have the everyday skills most people had. So getting out of prison was like a lot of uncertainties. So I was just, wandering around and, just didn't know what to expect.
Yeah. Um, you mentioned that you were on the streets in Denver before prison, and then again in our conversation you said you were on the streets after. What's it like being on the streets in Denver?
Well, for most of all, Denver has a lot of technical support. At the time I was on the street, you might not have the housing and, you know, maybe the job market, whatever, but you had a lot of shelters, you had day shelters, you had people who would come by, bring food, hygiene. So Denver is one of these cities where, you know, they real compassionate towards the homeless. Then the dark side about it is, you know, it's a lot of drugs, a lot of crime, you know, it's a lot of theft, it's a lot of, you know, just mayhem. You know, it's hard when you find yourself going through hard times. I believe in life, that's when you make your worst decisions. And I believe that could be for anybody, not just for a person that's in a bad situation, but just a person being in a bad situation. So, you know, being homeless is probably one of the toughest things that somebody has to experience other than living with a chronic illness.
What what kind of contact did you have with your family when you were on the streets back then?
The contact with my family was non-existent. I had created a distance between them because of my behaviors and the choices that I made in my life. So my family kind of distanced themselves from me.
Have you been able to fix that?
Well, I would like to say I've been able to fix it, but I would like to credit my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But it's a remarkable thing, you know. One of the biggest things that I think put my mother at rest is because she knew I went in incarceration or I went homeless, and then she knew I was a minister. And I think it gave my mother a sense of comfort, suffering cancer, that she was ready to go on. And I never felt a sense of proudness for my mother ever in life until that moment.
And you mentioned, jumping back and forth a little bit. You mentioned to me that when you got out of, actually, it was after you got out of prison. It was when you were splitting up with your wife. Um, you mentioned that you were back on the streets again.
Yeah, I was once I separated from my wife. You know, things was already in, you know, like a turmoil. And then I had to make a crucial decision because my wife had an 8 bedroom house in Park Hill. We had 2 cars. My wife was financial stable, but mostly I was just going through a lot of stuff I couldn't handle. So I had to walk away from that. So I had a backpack and I had a little bit of medication. And so through the word on the street, it was a new shelter opening called the National Stock Show. And they had 800 men there laying on cots. And, you know, they plus they had a bunch of resources. And I'm finding myself at the height of COVID going into this shelter. So shortly I got into the shelter, like I said, about 2 weeks after that, complications arose. You know, the cot was killing my spine. I was having a hard time walking. My medication ran out. You know, I was just, you know, thinking about why did I leave. I was going through a lot of mental health things, and you know, my world was crashing. The shelter became kind of violent. People was getting killed. Stuff was getting stolen, and it was getting overbearing with 800 guys. And then the nail in the coffin was coming. The National Stock Show said enough is enough. We got to close down. So I found myself going back on the streets, and one day I went out and I came back, and it was a message that the coalition was looking for me for housing. And you know, being overwhelmed, I was like, no, they ain't looking for me. I just signed up. I got a 2 year wait list. They specifically told me I had 2 years. This not the time to be playing with me. I'm trying to figure out where I'm going. And I think they was about to close in 3 weeks, but against better judgment, I called the next day, and sure enough, Mary Sutherland came and met with me and told me about this Citra program, this new program that the mayor and the coalition had. And, you know, slowly but surely, I found myself on a different path.
You were about ready to leave the stock show, because they were closing down and
It's
you couldn't
closing.
handle it, what would you have done if the coalition hadn't come through?
Just basic instincts. They had like openings for like 400 people, and so I signed up. I didn't make the list, and I knew how some of the shelters had been in the past with the bed bugs and other situations, and I just would have to find me somewhere safe, somewhere outside that I can, get back and forth. Mainly somewhere where I can find a food source, somewhere I can keep clean, or maintain until something else come up. So, it's just basic survival skills. I would do whatever it took just to, survive on the streets.
Can you tell me more about what it takes to survive on the streets?
Where it's different with each individual, but the broad spectrum is, first of all, you gotta have your safety prioritized. So the two things that you want to do is make sure you got a safe place where you can lay your head, and then when you wake up, you gotta make sure you got a place you can go to. The lay your head part is because of the crimes, the drugs, and all the other stuff that's going on. The waking up part is because you want to maintain your hygiene, you want to have clothes, you want to utilize food. So once you get them two things on the steady routine, then your basic instinct is you gotta be aware of the drugs, the crime that's going around, the people that's around you. You want to make sure that you around people who trying to get out the situation, not trying to pull you down in it or make it worse. And then you want to try to find good resources. For most of all, typically most homeless people really that's in a bad way and they can't get out of it no time soon. On a daily basis, we look for people that bring food. Most people got a scheduled day. We know these people be here every Tuesday. We know they be here every Sunday. But, we look for people that give us, hygiene, socks, sleeping bags. So, surviving on homeless environment is, I could say, time consuming because you constantly looking for the next need that you can get. It's whatever you can do to maintain without just falling apart. Because if you lose that drive that you want to ever get a place again, then you just fall to the wayside. Then you find yourself addicted to drugs, alcohol. You find yourself committing crimes, stealing from people, breaking in cars. You just find that you just go deeper into a situation that nobody really wanted to be, but unfortunately, if you let it get away from you, that's what happens.
Listening to you talk about it, it feels like it's harder to hold on to like your own humanity in a way. Like there's no space to just be you. I mean, am I on the right track? How would you put that?
Well, you're on the right track. Basically, what it is, it's like anything else in life. The stigma is like people want to be homeless, but it's not true. It's like a man got pride. He don't want to ask nobody for a sandwich if he can go out and buy a sandwich. That's the same thing with homeless people. They don't want to be homeless if they can have a place to stay. But when you don't have a sandwich, you got to drop your pride and take a sandwich for wherever you can get a sandwich. It's just that homeless people, you got to stay wherever you can stay until you get a place to stay. So, the stigma about things is misinterpreted, misviewed, and misunderstand.
What what should people who maybe don't have more experience with the homeless than walking past them on a weekday? What do you wish they understood about the folks they were walking past? Maybe they stop and give them a buck, maybe they don't. But what do they think about? Like what are they missing?
Well, I think in general, when people walk by somebody that's in a homeless situation, I think the biggest thing that's really helped humanity in any situation is compassion. Don't just stigmatize. Even though we do have things going on, but we don't need to categorize everybody in that same situation. That homeless person that you walk by might be one of the real hurting homeless person that really needs your help. And your help don't always come in the form of food or money. It might just be like, are you all right? Or when you leave, God bless you, have a good day. Every day somebody looking for some kind of encouragement, some kind of hope, something to give to them that they know that tomorrow might be better. So, if you walk by somebody that's homeless, just have compassion. I think you should treat the homeless situation based on the situation. Don't get me wrong. If somebody trying to attack you or somebody verbally cuss you out, that's not right. But deal with that on an individual basis. Don't perceive that is how the whole homeless community is. Because, one small gesture from you might change somebody's life. It did for me.
Yeah, tell me more about that. How, like, where are we now, and how'd you get here? What's it mean?
Well, it's a combination. It's a spectrum so broad that I don't think a lot of people comprehend. It takes unity. I started off. My case managers wanted to address my health, so I went to what they call transition limit. So the coalition had a place called Rehire, which not Rehire, but it was a transition place infusing. So I'm 38 for Quebec. So transition living gave me a chance to stay there until I found a place. So what that did is help me get my health back together. I was able to get a lady to come in to help me with rehab, help my strengthen my muscles. I was able to get back on my medication, and then I was able to get a series of documents like IDs and Social Security cards, stuff that was stolen from me. So transition living is a way to set you up for stable housing. So after that, I was offered a couple apartments and I turned them down. One in Aurora, one on the Five Points. So the case managers want to know what was going on, and I had to explain to them. I had to change my environment and my association with people. So I needed to be somewhere structured that I felt like I had a real chance of being productive. And so we thought outside the metro area would be a good solution, so we came to Lakewood.
Set it up for me. Tell me, or if we're in your apartment, and how long you've been here, and what it means to have a place.
Well, we in Lakewood, Colorado, which is a upscale working class neighborhood. I might be the only one in the housing program, but my neighbors don't know that. But it was set up 2 years ago. We came out here that the real estate company had changed. They no longer did paper lease. They was doing portals. So I was introduced with a new way of renting, and then I was introduced to a new different way of life. I came here, it was a code to get in the door. I got an outside storage. It was well groomed with landscaping. It was incredibly quiet. So I had to learn how to adapt to being around productive people, people who didn't have people coming in and out, people who wasn't, experiencing, addiction and, other forms of things that I'm quite used to, domestic violence and criminal activity. So, we with this coming to Lakewood, we knew it was going to be a challenge. So the case manager decided that, well, we're not going to let you do this by yourself. So I had two case managers, and each one would come once a week and see me and check on me. And they would structure me through this whole process. and I still got them two case managers right now today for the 2 years. So I think when you helping somebody, don't assume because their situation is the thing to solve their problem. The housing is not the situation that a person necessarily need to be solved. It's the structure that you got to get to the bottom of. You got to teach them how to reintegrate to be back into the housing, how to act around their neighbors, how to be productive in the community, how to keep people running in and out. So the coalition set up this structure with case managers. You have access to people and drug programs. So it's vital that, you give people some kind of structure once you bring them back in housing. Don't give them housing and put them in there because you're going to lose them. All they're going to do is go right back to the streets again.
Just real quick.
Okay.
Tell me that this is your apartment. You know what I mean? And how long you've been here?
Well, this is my apartment, Lakewood, Colorado. It's a studio. I've been here 2 years. One of the greatest moments in my life was accepting Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior. But this apartment is most definitely one of the biggest accomplishments I ever did in my life. I done had a lot of downfalls in my life, but I never felt so proud to the day I put this key in this door. And for all the people that make it happen, I certainly want to say thank you. And for people who gave me a second chance or allowed me to go forward with my life, I also would like to say thank you. I can't see a more accomplishment in my life. And one of the biggest things I just want to emphasize is when I was in the 5 points of the Capitol Hill area, I got over 30 misdemeanor arrests, 8 years incarceration with on DOC. But in Lakewood, Colorado, I have zero contact in police in 2 years. I've never been stopped, never been approached by the police.
I think to a lot of people, it's almost like a little thing. Like, okay, you got an apartment, you got this and that. They take it for granted. But you mentioned that you have 2 caseworkers, and they're still involved to this day. How much work does it take to change somebody's life?
Well, I'll say the majority of work takes you, but the number one thing is accountability. Most people who don't want case management help or they don't want to do structured things is people who got stuff to hide. But when you get gratitude and you appreciate something, you want to prove yourself to people. You want to show people, no, they're a lie. I didn't want to be on the street. No, I didn't want to be hooked on drugs. No, I didn't want to be in prison. It happened. Now I'm ready to go forward. So now you got this big old chip on your shoulders, and then you got your chest poked out. I'm going to show them. I'm going to show all of them that they was wrong. And then with the right people, it just makes you feel like, the world is still a good place to live, and it's still, majority of the people here are still good people.
You and I have talked about this, and you mentioned it, but I don't think I have it on camera, the whole story. How did you become a minister?
I was incarcerated, and I was at my 5-year term. I had 3 years to go, and I was hanging around some bad cats in prison. And a friend of mine knew me from when I went to church a little bit, on the streets. I just, as a young man, I got saved. I'd go Sundays, a couple times to Bible study, but, and he just felt like I was going in the right direction. So he talked to the chaplain. He said, look, Walter Boyd, he needs your help. He's like, well, what is he into? He's not into nothing. And he said, well, what games, what tattoos? Because we really doing a Christian Bible school. He's like, this guy don't have no tattoos. He don't got no game affiliation. It's like, what's the problem? I'm scared that he might eventually get caught up. And the chaplain stopped me. He said, look, I heard that you went to church a little bit on the streets. And he said, I really believe you're a man of God. And I believe the Lord got you here for a reason. And you got to make some choices. And I was like, what's that? He said, well, you come to Bible college, become a minister, or you can stay in the population and take your chance on whatever. And so I told him, I appreciate that, chaplain. But you know what they think about people in your Bible schools? They think you snitches or check-ins and all that. And I don't know how I'm going to survive on the yard like that, watching my back. He said, you ain't got to watch your back. Jesus will watch it. He gave me a week to think about it. And after the week, I decided to leave population and go to this Bible school.
How is it that this Bible school exists? Like, what prison was it? Like, I mean, because it sounds extraordinary that this is a thing, you know?
It absolutely is. I mean, it's a prison, what they call private prisons in Colorado, which is not owned by the state, and it's called Crowley Colony. And what it is what American Bible Academy. What they did is they talked to the chapel there, and they offered to bring in college courses, supply the books, the videos, the pencils, and everything. And then the chaplain just taught the class. And then we earned certificates, credits, and I also became a mentor to a group of 12 men as I started Vans. So what it is the chaplain really had a passion for helping men in prison, and fortunately his hands was tied to what he can do. So he took his faith and he really pushed it hard as he could to help every man that he could. And I was so grateful that he stood up for what he believed in. And so with this Bible course, I was able to get a diploma. And actually, I did a little too good because the prison was a medium closed. They had to move me to a lower security. It's just my points was too low, and I was too less of a risk, and my time was too short.
You said that caused a problem, so they actually took you out of the program a little early?
No, I graduated for the program, but now my points is so low, and my security risk is so low, and then my time is getting so low. I did too good too fast.
Um, you kind of alluded to it, but what is the risk of becoming of choosing a faith-based course in prison? What danger does that put you in with everybody else?
You know, I'm just going to enlighten you on a little bit. It's the same risk Jesus Christ took when he went into the world. It's persecution. So, you know, I was known to hang out with a particular group like the Crips on the east side. So that's what I knew when I came to Colorado. And then I have a straight reputation as Slim Red, the drug dealer, the hustler. So the risk is giving up my credibility and being targeted for, you know, being the check-in, for not one being population. So the risk is real. But the people that knew me knew I was sincere, and they went to bat for me. But it didn't leave me unscathed. You know, I still had incidents I had to deal with, and that's basically what prison is. It's not a place where, you know, everything's gonna always be safe, everything's gonna be right or work out. It's a place that you gotta make real life choices, and sometimes them choices might cost you, and they ain't always good.
So after this program, which changed your life, has your faith ever been tempted? Have you ever been close to going back to the life?
Well, you know, as anything else, faith is a broad spectrum of belief, but you still a human being. I'm still subject to everything every other man is. You know, sexual desires, you know, money, you know, status, you know. But the thing about it is you got to prioritize things. I always think about being in a 12 by 12 cell. I always think about sleeping in the alley. I always think about how horrific my marriage was. I always think about how I've been in that shelter. I couldn't be able to walk, and another guy had to help me up to get to the bathroom. You know, it's a war that I fight every day, Adam, between the man I used to be and the man I am. And the man that I am got to win this war, because the man I used to be would never win it.
Wow. Um, I don't have any more questions, but if there's anything else that you want to say, if there's anything that you talked about that you want to contextualize or say more about, if there's anything that you feel like, man, maybe I didn't want to say, tell me now before I turn the camera off, just so I can
Okay.
respect you in this process.
Thank you, Adam. First of all, I would like to basically just say I'd like to apologize to my community, my family, my friends, for the bad actions I did. And I would like to reassure the people of Colorado that all homeless people is not bad. And I also like to relate to the current situation with COVID. It just should have been a wake-up call that at any time, bad moments can happen and good people can find themselves in bad situations. I would like to say Colorado is an incredible state far as capacity and helping people. I'm from Detroit. I've been to other states, and it's really tough. Los Angeles, Chicago, Texas, you know, it's really some places you really don't want to be. And I also would like to say that this this homeless problem is not going away. You know, it takes a village of people to get involved and really want to make a difference. And with that, I like to say people like Adam, who doing documentaries, who talk to homeless people. You know, if you ever get a chance to talk to this man right here, or anybody that have experience with homeless, I would like for anybody to do this firsthand. And I would like to tell people right now that I'm so grateful where I'm at in my life right now. It's nothing that I can really say that can really show my appreciation, but you know, I just love Colorado and Denver for what they did and the opportunities they gave me.
Right on. Oh, and I actually would be remiss. This was part of the Denver Social Bond Initiative. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Tell me about that a little bit.
It was an initiative where the mayor and the court,
Put the name in there. The
the,
Denver Social Bond Initiative.
the Denver Social Bond Initiative was a program that was initiated with the mayor and a coalition for the homeless. And what they did is they went to private investors. You know, Kathy Alderman really believed that if we put homeless people in places without conditions or strings that they can make it, like drug programs or rehab or whatever, that they really would be successful. And she also believed that it would save the city money. Also believed that it would cut down incarceration. She also believed that, you know, with the private investors, they could make money on this. Nobody really believed that private investors coming in could actually do this. And not only that, you know, with the statistics, with the small numbers they had, 300 people, 77% of the people maintained their houses over the course of 2 years. And the investors made money, even so that the investors gave back $1 million to put back into the homeless program. And then with that, I was able to meet the mayor at the press conference. Then after the press conference, the mayor called me and invited me to the city of state address speech in Mount Bellow. And the mayor actually addressed me as my brother. It was the most enlightened thing that I ever did in my life besides me getting out and getting my voting rights back. I was so appreciated. I met Senator, Congress Lady Diane Gannett. She gave me a hug. I just amazing how once a person didn't have nothing, then all of a sudden surrounded by groups of people that thought he was everything. I just appreciate how, you know, sometimes when you stigmatize and some people choose to overlook that and look at the real person, how much meaning it gives a person. You know, the whole thing with me is, you know, a lot of people approach me and said, talk about my past, but it's funny how nobody asks what I'm doing in my future. If somebody asks me, I got a BA in biblical studies. You know, I've been out of incarceration 14 years. I've been successful in housing 2 years in Lakewood. I have zero contact with the police. I've been into numerous homeless advocate events. I'm still a part of Project Hope Denver Health Mental Health Board. I do a drug and alcohol program. I sit on the CCAP board, which we discuss things that are going on in the community. A sense of pride is what the coalition and other people who choose to live look past the stigma of homelessness.